I landed a brand identity project for a lifestyle brand, so in this video I'm going to walk you through the entire process of designing it from scratch. Creating a brand can feel like an overwhelming task because there's so many things you need to take into consideration and you need to do to design something that feels personal, authentic, and impactful. So today we'll go through my exact process of building brand identities from scratch as a brand designer and strategist. First, let's talk about the business we're going to be building the brand identity for. Fun Shiny Day is a sustainable screen printing studio where traditional craftsmanship meets thoughtful design. The brand creates original hand-printed artwork on garments, paper, and textiles using water-based inks and ethically sourced materials. Each piece is made in small batches to produce wearable works of art that reflect individuality, emotion, and care for the planet. So in a world full of noise and fast fashion, Fun Shiny Day is a reminder to slow down, share your joy with others, and express yourself. The brand strategy stage is all about understanding the company, their goals, mission, vision, values, competitors, ideal audience, all of the things that help you figure out what makes your brand unique and how it can stand out in the market. For Fun Shiny Day, I developed a complete brand strategy outlining all of these things, but for confidentiality reasons, I'll just show you a summary of the most important points so you can get an idea of what the brand is all about. Having a solid understanding of all of these components means that we'll be able to design an intentional and strategic visual identity later on, because we'll know who we're targeting and how to get their attention. Once we understand who the brand is, we need to know what it looks like. As brand designers, it's our job to translate strategy into visuals, and that can look very different from designer to designer or even from designer to client. So in order to make sure we're on the same page and we don't design something that the client really hadn't envisioned, we create creative directions. A creative direction is basically a collection of images or media that have a cohesive aesthetic and that gives the client an idea of what the brand will resemble. So once the client gets the options, they choose which one best mimics what they had in mind or what they think their customers will prefer. Taking into consideration there's obviously no wrong choice because both creative directions were created with brand strategy in mind. In the case of Fun Shiny Day, we went with mood board number 1, which features sans serif fonts, vibrant colors, abstract patterns, wordmark customizations, and a very warm photography style. Now let's jump into design. When building any logo, it's very important to make sure that the logo suite is responsive. That basically means that we need to develop a set of logos that look cohesive, but that have different sizes and dimensions so they can be used across different mediums and touch points. And when building that logo suite, it's very important that we identify what makes the brand unique so that we can explode that. In the case of Fun Shiny Day, when I say it out loud or even when I wrote it down, I realized the name was a bit long, so it was going to be harder for potential clients to remember. So this is a potential problem that the brand may have, and as designers, our job is to find solutions to those problems. So I wanted to find something very unique and very meaningful that allowed customers to remember the brand easier. To do this, I wrote down the name of the brand, and I see that in the middle of the name, if we put together the H and the I, the word makes a hi. And I feel like that's very fitting for the brand and everything it stands for. So with the hi, it's like the brand is telling you to be expressive and don't be afraid to say hi, to share your joy with other people, and I don't know, just be nice. And I feel like that simple greeting just ties really well with all of the brand's values. With this done, I'm gonna try and take those letters and customize them to be the focal point of the brand and probably potentially the logo mark. After a bit of time, this is what I came up with. As you can see, there's a lot of variations. So right now I'm gonna move to Adobe Illustrator to vectorize the best ones and keep trying there. For fonts, I've been playing with a couple of options. I'm finding Recorder to be the best one because it's the sans serif that feels the most round and most approachable. So with that said, I'm gonna take the pencil tool, I'm gonna isolate the hi, and I'm gonna try and figure out what I wanna do. I actually really like how these turned out. I think it's an amazing logo mark already, and I feel like if we put the tagline on the bottom left part, it will make the logo more balanced and it will look amazing. So this is something that happens sometimes. You start designing logos and instead of designing the primary logo, you start with a logo mark, and that's completely fine. At the end of the day, some brands need a logo mark to be the focal points, other need a primary logo. As long as you make a good job, it doesn't matter in which order you create things. So as you can see, we went from fun shiny day to a fully customized logo type. I designed the logo like this because, like I said, the high carries a lot of meaning, so it echoes the brand's values perfectly. I modified the ligature here of the high to reflect screen printing and the flow of ink when it's running through fabric, which, you know, as I said, it's what the brand does. It's a screen printing studio, so it's their core their core medium. It also conveys a lot of individuality and personality, which is something that the company wanted to highlight to make everybody feel confident and special. And lastly, the logo is very abstract, so it goes back to art and creativity, which are in the brand's roots. With the primary logo, I did the stacked variation to be able to fit more rectangular spaces, and also the logo mark, which I have the option of leaving it like that or incorporating the brand's tagline, which, you know, gives it more balance. I also created a couple of options with different slogans to create some sort of variations and then be able to create stickers or stamps for the pictorial mark and potentially the brand pattern. I also tried this idea of doing something with fingerprints. Since the pieces are made in small batches and everything is handmade, I feel like the fingerprints really fit the vibe of the brand and what it stands for. First, it's something very unique to people. Not one fingerprint is the same, so not one piece is the same really. And, you know, since the owner is the artist, I feel like with the fingerprint, she's like leaving a piece of her heart and her art and creativity and just her joy in each piece. She's leaving all of those positive things to the person who's getting the t-shirt or the piece. And it mimics how messy screen printing can be, because you literally get your hands dirty and they're filled with paint. So it's also something very representative of the art. So with the logos done, this is what they look like in black. And now it's time to add some color. For the colors, I tried a couple of options, but I ended up going with this one. The brown and the yellow will be the primary colors of the brand, and then the rest will be for like the secondary colors and some accents. Now that we have the logos, colors, and typography, I'm gonna jump into the brand pattern. I wanna create two versions of the brand pattern, one that features the pictorial mark and then just like a tagline or slogan or just something that mimics the brand's personality. And this pattern is going to be more minimal. And then I also want to create a busier pattern with only the fingerprint, like pictorial mark. So I have the basic composition here, and I'll create the brand pattern now. I've altered the elements, so now I'll just select the grid and we should be good to go. Okay, yeah, I love this so much. I feel like it's the perfect balance between minimal and just, I don't know, I really, really like it. So I'm gonna do the same for the other pattern, and this is what they look like with all of the different colors. To finish up, I'm designing the illustrations and the icons. For the illustrations, I wanted to create feelings in the size of a screen printing frame. So I have these rectangles here, and I'm gonna draw semi-abstract shapes so they convey different feelings like joy, friendship, love, calm. And I'm using the pencil tool for this, which, you know, I'm just gonna take my time, design them, and just perfect them. So I finished all of the illustrations, and to give them more personality, I've given them like an effect so they look like paint, you know, in something like when you paint with a sponge and it's not perfect and it leaves those like little gaps. I think that gives the brand more personality. So moving on to the icons, I just created hand-drawn personalized icons with a bit of like a shade. So it looks, again, printed and more organic and less corporate perfect. So I think they look very nice and cohesive. When you finish designing a brand, you get a huge file with lots of 2D designs. And those designs are probably going to be very hard for the client to imagine in the real world. So to make it a bit easier, I like putting those designs into mock-ups so both me and the client can get an idea of what the brand would look like in real life. I found this makes the client like the visual identity even more, because it's a great way to test the design. So I went ahead and also developed a couple of collaterals like business cards, social media posts, clothing tags, etc. Once you're done with the design, the client gives you their feedback. So in my case, I always use a presentation because it allows me to explain the design choices and everything much better. So here's an overview of what the client usually gets. And I'm so happy because the client loved the concept and the designs and just gave me a couple of tweaks that needed to be done. Like for instance, the calm illustration didn't really feel calm for her, so I just tweaked it. So I just needed to fix some minor details, but the overall brand really, fit the brief, so that's amazing. And once the client gives the go-ahead on those revisions, I'll create a brand guidelines document and I'll just export all of the files and I'll send them to the client. This is the end of the video. I hope you found it useful, and if you need help with your branding, feel free to reach out through the contact form on my website, linked down below. I'd love to work together or just give you some guidance. And don't forget to subscribe if you don't want to miss any of my future videos, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!